So welcome back to the channel. Today on Techdriven, we're going to be talking about the latest AMD launch of the RX 6000 series of video cards. I know I spoke a lot about leaked information on Sunday's episode, so if you did not watch that, you should go check it out. And if you didn't watch the AMD stream that happened today, today's October the 28th, you should also watch that after this video. I'll have it linked below of both videos. And stick around. Today should be fun. I'm going to give you guys my comments and what I think of the new RDNA2 cards versus the Ampere cards. Stick around. So I've taken some time today to kind of calm down after the exciting launch and really digest some of the really hot information that's come out that AMD has shown off. Some of the key features they showed off today was they finally have hardware ray tracing support. DirectX 12 Ultimate with ray tracing is kind of how they're doing it, which is amazing. So they're working closely with Microsoft using their APIs to leverage and do real-time ray tracing, which is great. They also showed off that a lot of game developers are they're working with to get their ray tracing off the ground and to show, hey guys, we're doing ray tracing and there's actually going to be games that are going to support it. Unlike NVIDIA when they started ray tracing, but granted, NVIDIA really got the ball rolling and yeah, they had a rocky start. Some other notable features that AMD is showing off is they have infinity cache on all these cards. So there was a bit of speculation that the cards could potentially have a cache on board. So every single card that's shown off today has 128 meg infinity cache. So what does that mean? That is memory on die. Super high speed, high bandwidth cache that is on the die. So very close, super fast. So think of it as layer 3 cache like your CPU. Amazing. That's game changing, really. A couple other features they showed off was they have their super resolution, which is very similar to DLSS. Some sources that I was reading into, they questioned it. It's like, hey, is this kind of like DLSS? And they're like, no, kinda, maybe. And they were kind of tight-lipped on it. But basically, it does the same thing. It's a dynamic scaling of resolution for textures. Will it work the same as DLSS? Maybe, maybe not. We'll see. So they didn't really get too much detail of that, as well as they have a host of a lot of other features like their anti-lag, and also it works with their FreeSync that is on tons of monitors, tons of TVs now, and there's a bunch of other cool features AMD's shown off. One of the other fun ones is in their Adrenaline software, they have now added Rage Mode, which what they said was a one-button overclocking feature. So what does this get you? Well, Rage Mode gets basically ups the power limit of the card, adjusts the fan curve so the card won't hit its power limit and should boost higher. So its auto boosting and auto overclocking features should be able to push it a little bit further as long as thermals and power limit aren't an interfering factor. But based on some of the results they showed, you don't get a huge performance increase. But you get a better performance increase with their new Smart Access Memory. So Smart Access Memory, what's that? Well, Smart Access Memory is when you pair an RX 6000 series video card with an AMD Ryzen 5000 series CPU. Well, that kind of makes sense. They worked closely with their CPU division to make the two cards and a 500 series motherboard, so a B550, X570 motherboard. Anyone with an older motherboard like myself, you're kind of out of luck. But what does that mean? Well, the Smart Access Memory, basically when you pair the two together, the CPU will have access to not all the GPU memory. In one of their presentations, they were saying that in the past, CPUs only had access to about 128 megs of GPU memory, but now it has access to all 16 gigs of memory on these new cards, which is amazing because GPU memory and the bandwidth between the GPU and the CPU is very large, and GPU memory is very fast. So that'll be really interesting to see how they're going to leverage that and how that's going to work out with games and performance for, let's say, rendering applications or rendering, if you're producing videos, doing production workloads or gaming workloads. So that will be quite interesting to see how that develops in the future. But let's get on to the actual cards. The RX 6800 is the baby of the new RDNA lineup. But even still, being the baby card, it pushes 2080 Ti levels of performance. Or as we found out yesterday, RTX 3070 performance, as the 3070 performs just like a 2080 Ti at a much lower price point, smaller form factor, and less power consumption at $500. So where does that put the RX 6800? Well, the 6800 comes in at $580 US MSRP, so it's $80 more than the 3080, but it features 16 gigs of GDDR6, so twice the VRAM, which is really impressive. A dual slot cooler with 3 fans, 2 8-pin connectors, no special connector, and they're at the end of the card, not the middle of the card. So from a cable management standpoint, it'll fit and work with most builds very nicely. Let's talk about some raw specs about the card. 60 compute units, 1.8 gigahertz game clock, a 2.1 gigahertz actually, boost clock, 16 gigs of RAM as I mentioned earlier, 256-bit bus on that memory, a 128 meg infinity cache, so that's the on-die memory, 250 watt TDP, so that's fairly low, not a high power consumption card, most likely won't be a big heat producer. It's set to launch on November 18th, which is great. So not too long to wait on that card. So that's going to be right up against a 3070 or 2080 Ti. And if you're talking 2080 Ti numbers, it's way cheaper. So both NVIDIA and AMD brought that level of high-end performance at a much more attainable price, which is awesome. Good job, guys. That's between both of them, awesome. I'm really happy about that. Moving up to the RX 6800 XT, you go from 60 compute units to 72. So this is a little bit beefier of a card. It's got a 2.5 slot cooler, same triple fan, same dual 8-pin connector at the end of the card as well. So this will still fit in tons of builds. It's not extra tall, not extra long. It's very manageable size, which is great. So AMD's biggest goal was making these cards very DIY friendly and easy to fit in a lot of different builds. You don't have to completely rejig your build to fit them. They're not gargantuan, which is really, really nice. It has a 2 gigahertz game clock, a 2.2 gigahertz boost clock, which is a good performance increase over the 6800 non-XT. 300 watt TDP, so it's a little bit higher. Same launch date, November 18th, so not too far off. Biggest difference is the price, $650. And if you think about that, this card is directly in line, when you look at the benchmarks that AMD showed off, with a 3080. Beating it in some games, if not matching it in others, or just a little bit behind. But at $50 less of the cost and less power consumption, which is great. So less power consumption, less price. That's just the win in my books. Let's move on to the biggest of the RDNA cards, the 6900 XT. Nice. The 6900 XT features 80 compute units. So this is the full die. It's got all the features, all the stops are pulled out for this guy. There is no holding back with the 6900 XT. It features the same game clock at 2 gigahertz, the same boost clock at 2.2 gigahertz. 16 gigs of RAM as well, so across the lineup we got 16 gigs of GDDR6. Same 128 meg infinity cache across the line as well. This is the best part. I was expecting, okay, 6900 XT, it's beefier, it's got more compute units, it can, it's a higher end card, it's gonna have, 350 watt TDP. Wrong. Same 300 watt TDP. Same cooler at 2.5 slot. I don't know how AMD did this, but man, when they said that they improved their performance per watt, they really, really did. Because to pack that much performance, RTX 3090 level performance in a card that only uses 300 watts and is relatively compact is nuts. The other kicker, the ultimate kicker here, that NVIDIA will probably go, oh shit, is it's only $1,000 versus $1,500 for the 3090. So that's crazy. And when you look at the first party benchmarks, they game almost the same. Now, one of the big asterisks in this, and when you look at the benchmark, is at the bottom corner, it says Rage Mode was on, and the Smart Access Memory was on. So it was running on a Ryzen 3 system on a 500 series motherboard. So they gave the 6900 XT the best advantage. Of course, it's their own product. They're going to show it in the best light possible. So I'm curious to see how those cards would compare with that stuff turned off, and both cards are running native. Both vanilla versus vanilla, out-of-box settings, go. How are they game together? But still, at $500 cheaper, I'd buy the 6900 XT all day long. So that is super impressive. So that was my quick wrap-up summary of the RDNA2 launch. I want to hear your guys' comments on what you thought and what were your original expectations of the cards. AMD really blew what I had expected out of the water. I was expecting maybe 3080 level performance on the top end, but not 3090 level performance on the highest end GPU. So that was super impressive. But again, we have to wait for third-party benchmarks, and it's always good to read and watch multiple reviews to get a very open picture and a very broad picture of how these perform in different setups and in different environments. Personally, myself, I'm looking at either an RTX 3080 or the RX 6800 XT. The RTX 3080 I think will be a really nice card, but I don't know if I'd water cool it because it's just so pretty. Where the RX 6800 XT, I like the cooler. I want to see it in the flesh, but that I would be slapping a water block on right away. As in one of AMD's videos, they showed EK's already working on them. So that would fit nicely in my current build right now. But anyways, guys, thank you for watching. And if you did like this video, please remember to thumbs up. And I've noticed about 69% of you guys have not subscribed to the channel. So if you did enjoy what you're watching, please subscribe. Check the bell button as well so you get notified when we release new videos every Sunday at 9 a.m. Today is a bit of an exception, but stick around. We'll see you on Sunday. Bye.